everybody, it's Nika. I'm back. Today I'm going to teach you how to make just a simple chiffon skirt. Here I have some ivory chiffon that I got from AFC Express. This is 2 yards. So what I've done, every time I get any type of fabric, I fold it lengthwise, just because most of the time that's how I work with my fabric. And excuse me if you hear my little ones in the background. Both of them are home sick today. Actually, Autumn was home sick yesterday and she is home again sick today. Anyway, I have it folded lengthwise, and what I'm going to do with this is fold it again, so it makes it easier for me to cut, and that's going to give us 4 layers. Now you can find which way is best for you. This just works best for me. So also what you're going to need is some elastic. What I have here is soft elastic. I like this a lot better than the normal elastic when I'm making stuff for her, just because she's one of those little girls who loves to dress up, who loves to look pretty, but she also loves to run around with her brothers. So I use this soft elastic so she can have comfort, a little bit of durability, and she doesn't have to worry about, oh, the hard elastic hurting her waist. So what I'm going to do is cut this at the size of her waist. I'm not going to cut it longer. I'm not going to cut it shorter. I'm going to cut this at her exact waist. Now, if I were making a skirt for her where I would be feeding the elastic through the waistband, I would cut it just a little bit shorter because that elastic would need to stretch. For this particular skirt, the elastic is actually going to be our waistband. So her waist is 20 inches. It fluctuates from 20 to 21. If I do it at 22, it's way too big for her. Now, the funny thing about that is she's been that waist at least since she was a year old. She used to have a pudge, and now she's 5 and she's getting really tall, so she's getting really thin. So what I'm going to do is actually cut it at 21 just to give me a little bit extra if she needs it. And because it's elastic, it's going to stretch, so that will work out great. Okay, and you could do the same thing if you're making the skirt for yourself or someone else. Just remember to cut it at waist length. Give yourself a little bit more, maybe a 1/4 inch, just for the seam. So we're going to measure out. I'm going to measure out 21 and just a tad bit over so that I can sew this together. I'm going to cut over just about a 1/4 inch. And the great thing about where I buy my elastic from, I get it from rufflefabric.com, and I'll leave that link in the description. The great thing about ordering that is if you only need a yard, you can order a yard. Eventually I'll get into buying more, but right now I buy what I need. I'm not really completely finished organizing my sewing room, so I don't buy more than what I need because right now I just have nowhere to store it. So anyway, 21 inches. And what we have, and I'm just going to set this aside for now, and I have a lot more to use for later. I actually ordered 3 yards of this last summer. So with our fold, we are going to cut this. So you want to look at your fabric first before you fold it in half again. Let's open this back up for now. So I want this to be very ruffled, right? So when I attach it, it's gonna be gathered. So I'm going to find what I think is the longest area of my fabric and then cut it that way, because then I will be opening it up to feed it through my sewing machine. So you decide exactly where you want to cut your fabric and then fold it that way. And I believe I had it folded the longest length this way. So like I said, I'm going to fold this up to give myself 4 pieces, and then I'm gonna cut the bottom, and then my 4 pieces will be together. And with these kind of skirts, it's okay if it's a little uneven underneath. And as you can see, I didn't say anything about a lining. I am actually not gonna make a lining for this, just because this is gonna be more of a play skirt for her, as opposed to wearing, you know, to an outing or something like that. If I were making this for myself, obviously I would put a lining underneath. And when you're making your lining, you can make it the same size as your skirt going down lengthwise, or you can cut it a little bit higher to give yourself that look of, just a different look. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and cut this. So now that we have it folded the way we need it folded, it's time to cut. So of course, like I've always told you, I'm right-handed. So what makes this easiest for me working with chiffon, I like to put the scissors in. I'm not going to unfold that much, and I'm going to try my best to leave this flat and just cut along the fold here at the top, and that will give us our 4 pieces. So I'm just going to keep cutting until I have both of the pieces cut, both of the double pieces, because it will be 4 layers. Okay, so what happens with this is when you get ready to open it, you are going to open it, and it's going to be one long piece. See? And you're going to gather this long piece together. And like I said, normally I would do a underlayer for this for her, but since this is just going to be a play skirt, I am just going to leave it the way it is, and she can wear shorts or leggings underneath. So at this point, we don't need to pin. The only thing we need to pin is our elastic, and I pin the 2 raw edges together, and I'm just going to sew a straight stitch down to put this together. However, we are going to work with our chiffon first. So let's go over to the sewing machine. Okay, over here at the sewing machine, I want to show you what I'm using. Today, I'm actually using my ruffler foot. If you are unfamiliar with this, this is actually my first time using it. If you've watched me in my previous videos, you know that I did everything with my sewing machine before, but this was a great investment for me, and I'm glad I bought it because it really helps with gathering ruffles and pleats. It actually does 3 different levels of gathering, ruffling, and pleating. I have it on number 1, which means it's going to gather every 1 stitch. So it's going to give me that ruffle I need to make this skirt, so then it's going to make the skirt a lot fuller. There is 6, which means it gathers at every 6, and then 12, which it gathers or pleats at every 12th stitch. So I'm just going to use a straight stitch for this. The assembly, if you need to see me assemble this on my sewing machine, please ask and I'll do a later video of that. But for this video, we're just going to make the skirt. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put this through, and what you're going to need to do for this is open this up and see how it's really long. And I did cut this in half just because I want this to be a shorter skirt for her. Had I left it really long like it was, it would have been more of a dress than a skirt. So I did cut hers in half. When you're using this, you want to remember to hold on to your chiffon. Chiffon is something that's very, very slippery. It will go right out of your hands. So what I'm going to do is kind of straighten mine out a little bit, and I always kind of just pull down the ends like this. I don't like to iron chiffon. You can. I would suggest suggest if you do it, you want to do it at a really, really cool temperature on your sewing machine so that it doesn't burn, because it will burn very fast. You don't want to steam it. The best thing to do if you're ironing it is to put a paper bag or a sheet or something over it, still have it at a low temperature, and then iron it if you really need to iron it. But I like to hold mine down like this while I'm sewing, which really helps to keep the chiffon stabilized. And as you can see, it's gathering really well. And like I said, this was a great investment for me. It makes things faster. So with me cutting this in half, it did give me that 4 layers that I was initially looking for. So now this is going to be a lot fuller than it would have been before with just the 2 layers. So I'm going to go ahead and finish getting this together, and then I'll show you how to finish off the elastic as well as putting this all together. Okay, I've changed my foot back to my regular foot, and like I said, I have the 2 raw edges pinned together. You really don't need them, but I did, and we're just going to continue on with a straight stitch all the way across to get our elastic closed. So I'm just going to put it through up underneath our foot here and just go ahead and sew our straight stitch. I'm going to back stitch and then go ahead through. Now I'm going to back stitch again to close it. And I'm going to go just a little over it again. This is just what I like to do, just to secure the stitch with the elastic. Because I want it to be super secure for her. So, see, now we have it together. So I'm just going to cut off the loose end here. And you could fold this down if you wanted to and then stitch over it again, like so. Mine is a little small. You could fold it like that and then do a straight stitch on both sides. I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, and that's what it looks like. You want to cut off your loose threads there like that. Just cut that on off. And at this point, if you have a label, you could go ahead and put your label on. And now it's time for me to show you how to pin this so you can sew it together. So now that you've sewn everything together, you want to lay your pieces flat. And this is what I do just so I can pin them together to the elastic. So like I said, I have 4 layers, 2 of which I sewed together at the same time. You just want to kind of make the tops of your chiffon even, so that when you pin them together, it's going to give you that even look. Okay, and this is my last layer. I'm just going to set this on top. And if you don't have the ruffle foot like I used today, I do have a tutorial of how to ruffle chiffon, and that shows you actually how to use your sewing machine without a ruffle foot. So now that I have all my pieces laid out, and they are as even as possible at the top, I'm going to take my elastic. So now that we have all of our layers together, what you're going to do is you're going to take your elastic and put it to where the tag is on the outside. So that would be, you want your seam that you just sewed here to be on the inside once you fold this up. So I actually have it on the outside right now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my chiffon layers and I'm going to pin it to the right side, and I'm going to sew it actually to the bottom to the bottom of our elastic. Now I'm going to show you that again. Since I have my tag on, it's easier for me to clarify where I want my chiffon and my elastic to be sewn together, because when I flip this up, then I won't have that seam showing. So I'm going to go ahead and just overlay it a little bit, just because I'm going to have to sew both my sides of chiffon together. It's easier to do it this way, for me at least. That way I can sew all the layers together at once instead of doing it all separately like I used to do. So I'm just going to overlap that just slightly so that when I sew it, I still have enough room to sew both my side seams of my skirt together. So I'm going to pin all the way around the elastic, and then I'm going to sew a zigzag stitch, and then we'll be finished. So now that everything is pinned together, as you can see, I have a little bit of excess. So what I'm going to do, because I still want to have enough so I can sew, just like I said, to the other side of my chiffon skirt. So remember that you want to leave enough of a space, just enough to sew the two seams together, as well as to sew that part to the elastic with the rest of the skirt. So I'm going to make sure that when I cut this side, that I have enough to sew to my seam and enough to make sure to attach it to the elastic. You don't want to have it so tight to where when you sew the seams together that you can't sew it to the elastic because it's just too tight. So that's why I always say to leave just a little bit extra to give yourself that extra space you need for the seam as well as to attach it. Now that we have that cut, I'm going to go ahead and just pin these 8 sides, actually I said 6 before, 8 sides together, and then that seam will be on the inside and no one will see it. All right, let's get sewing. I'm actually going to sew my seam first, and then I'm going to go around and sew the skirt to the waistband just to make it easier for me. So I'm going to leave this, just because I'm sewing the seam, I'm going to leave that on a straight stitch. Cut it off. And let's go ahead and get started with the waistband. Let's cut this little piece of thread off. So now that we have everything pinned, everything appears to look how it's going to look when she has it on, I'm going to go ahead and set for my zigzag. And because I'm working with an already round waistband, I'm just going to put that over my sewing machine here, and it's just going to make it easier for me to sew this together. I tend to try to sew as best I can around the stitch that's already there. If you can't, try to sew a little bit below it. That way when you flip the skirt up, you won't see that thread on the other side. And I'm coming around to the end here. So mine is just a little gathered back here in the back, so I'm just going to make sure that I'm holding it flat and that my elastic is in place. And I'm just going to go over that area that I already went over. And then I'm going to back stitch just a little bit. And now we are all done. So let's take a look at our face. So I still have my skirt the way I sewed it in the sewing machine. What I'm going to do now is flip this out like so and turn our elastic waistband up. And as you can see, it's still stretchy. We can still stretch it. Oh, sorry. So when she puts this on, it's not going to be super tight. So you always want to use a zigzag stitch when you're using a true to waist elastic band. If I made this larger, then it wouldn't matter. I would go ahead and use a straight stitch, but I would be stretching as I'm putting it through the sewing machine. When you're using your elastic, as you can see, you want to make sure you have a big enough width for the thread stitch, so when it goes through, it has that super stretch. This is a little tight, but I did make it an inch longer than her waist, so this will fit her perfectly. But those are just some little tips to remember, and it's really, really full. And as you can see, you can't even see through it right now. But I'm still going to make her wear shorts or leggings underneath it. And this is cute for dance. It's cute for her to wear if she just wants to play in it, go outside in it, whatever she wants to do in it, she has the ability to do in this. If you have any questions, please put those questions in the comments. If you have any questions regarding my other videos, or like I said, if you want me to do a tutorial of attaching the ruffle foot in the different settings on the ruffle foot, please let me know and I will get that tutorial to you. If there is something that you would like to see me make or something you want to see me discuss with you, just let me know and I will get to that as soon as I can. Go ahead and check out my family channel if you want to see us interact throughout the week. If you would like, I am on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. All of those are in the description below. You do have a few more days to enter the Mother's Day contest. I am picking a winner May 1st, so don't forget to enter your mom in that so you can get that lovely little prize that I have for that giveaway. I think that's about it for me today. Sorry, I had a little brain fart, but if you have any questions about the tutorial that we did today, please let me know. Don't hesitate to ask me any questions. I will answer them as soon as possible. And as always, I will see you next week.